Well, ladies and gentlemen, I had a nice weekend. I watched Flora and Son, laughed at Gen V, and enjoyed the dependable but pretty silly Gareth Edwards outing, The Creator. Edwards is a mid-range filmmaker to the bone. He's never produced anything even remotely close to greatness, but he does consistently deliver entertaining pictures, and he continues to do just that with The Creator. The story is set in 2065 and sees humanity grappling with massive advances in robotics and AI. Following a nuclear explosion in LA, these things have been outlawed by the US and are hunted down around the globe. Imagine Desert Storm America hitting Asia to kill robots, and you can understand the energy behind the stakes at this time of the film. Fuck yeah! Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah, America! Fuck yeah! John David Washington plays Joshua Taylor, who used to work undercover for the Yanks in the hopes of tracking down a tech whiz and ally of robots named Nermata. He ultimately falls in love with Nermata's daughter and has a baby with her. This all goes tits up in the opening 10 minutes, seemingly resulting in her death. Years later, Taylor is roped back in to find and destroy a weapon which could defeat the Yanks and allow robots to proliferate and take over the Earth. It's Avatar meets Elysium, more or less. And so The Creator is not, as I've mentioned, brilliant, but it is solid and entertaining. It's a fine use of 2 hours of your time if you're looking for some fun. Edwards has delivered very strong CGI despite a budget of $80 million, and broadly he possesses competence as a director which ensures the film works, and so I'd recommend giving it a go. I definitely think it's a shame the film is tanking at the box office, because competently made original films should ideally be supported in this market. Now, at this point someone might say, wait, you thought Oppenheimer was overrated but you liked The Creator? Are you a brainlet? And I just want to be clear, I might be retarded. I might. But I'm pretty sure they're apples and oranges. One is made to be a standard sci-fi action thriller. It has beats to hit which are very different from a historical biopic, and The Creator hits those beats. So it gets a passing grade. This shouldn't be hard to understand, but I ought to mention it. From its opening montage on the history of robots and into speculative fiction on how they came to be, we can quickly see that Edwards has at least considered to a degree what the world will look like in the future beyond typical cliches. He is pushing himself here to create something original and insightful, with a heavy emphasis on the nature of the soul. Do animals have one? What about killers? And of course, does a robot possess this indefinable thing? All of which makes for an interesting film. Unfortunately, it is also still full of cliches. There's a giant Death Star machine in space called the Nomad, and you know from the opening that the final act will be set in space as Taylor and the weapon seek to destroy it. And yes, that happens. There's a child robot, who is obviously the weapon, and we know this will warm the heart of the jaded Taylor. And yes, that happens. There are Americans experiencing the redemption of Eastern mythology and all that cliched stuff as they quote-unquote go native and discover some kind of good vibe which makes them nice. And yes, that happens. Never mind that a casual study of rape culture would make you want to nuke most of Asia. So as I've mentioned, if you've seen Avatar and Elysium, or Avatar and Chappie, then you've seen The Creator. And I could definitely understand why someone would want to write it off because of this. Just like Rogue One or Godzilla, Edwards keeps you engaged even with all the stereotypical BS flying about. You know when you watch Rambo that he's going to kill people, have a couple one-liners, and win in the end. So you accept it and enjoy the ride. The same is happening with The Creator. It is what it is, and it isn't ashamed of that. John David Washington is the only man around right now that I genuinely think could become a movie star, which makes the box office flop even harder to bear. I think the guy is a legend in the making, and while he isn't at his father's level yet, I do believe he'll get there. Joshua Taylor is funny, charming, violent, and cruel, yet also a sympathetic hero. He's a very well-rounded character, and by the end of the picture I was 100% on board with him during his big heroic speech. The Creator has numerous flashbacks throughout the course of the film, and so we learn about his parents' death in the LA nuke, the loss of his family in New Asia, his disillusionment in humanity, and then ultimately the redemptive power of love. One thought which I had throughout, and which kind of put me off the film, is that there was an Annapurna video game called Stray a few years back, which had Asiatic robots living in a Hindu Buddhist enclave, and they look exactly like the robots in the creator. So I kept thinking, did they just steal from the game? It stopped me from getting into the spirit of the flick at times, and if you haven't played Stray, then I highly recommend you check it out. I have 2 cats, by the way. You know, I thought I was a dog man, but I've discovered cats are far superior pets. They're just such little goofballs. Anyway, here are some criticisms. Edwards' dependable direction can at times be frustrating because literally you watching this video right now, could look at how he shoots a scene and then come up with a more creative execution. He does exactly what we've come to expect, but that doesn't mean it's good, it means it's passable. At times he opts for quick cuts when a long take would have been superior. At times he chooses a reverse shot when a slow dolly in on a 2-shot would be more effective. It's exhausting to watch after you've developed some awareness of good filmmaking because you can see the guy is literally doing what would be advised in a no film school blog instead of really pushing himself to create something truly artistic. The $1 trillion Death Star, the Nomad, in the creator, sits in orbit and travels around the world, dropping bombs willy-nilly anywhere that has supporters of AI and robots. At first this seems to work because the region they're targeting is called New Asia, which seems to be a conglomerate of breakaway nations from North and Southeast Asia. There's a quick flash on the screen of a map, so I might be off if my recollection is inaccurate. But nevertheless, it falls apart the more I think about it when I don't quite understand why China wouldn't act contrary to the US and continue investing in AI. The Nomad would never drop a bomb on China for fear of a nuclear retaliation, and AI would certainly give them an advantage over the Yanks. It may seem silly to fuss over this detail, but it is hard to overlook when the existential threat of AI is only significant to the Americans, but completely ignored by the rest of the world. A world, I hasten to add, which never experienced any potential downside to this technology and would benefit enormously from applying it. I would also imagine that robot soldiers could be mass-produced by 2065, so I was surprised to see that New Asia seemed to struggle to produce any sizable defense. The way the movie presented itself seemed to suggest that the scientists were on the ropes. But when we get inside a large city which supports AI, we can clearly see that robots are everywhere. How long does it take to manufacture one? Give it the consciousness of an elite soldier and send it off to go and kill. The Nomad can't be everywhere at once, so it was a little weak for me. The influence of Matt Reeves' The Batman is felt very strongly during a very average Radiohead montage sequence, echoing the Nirvana montage from the aforementioned superhero flick. Again, we see here that Edwards is a competent, but not exceptional director, as his sequence doesn't really work at all. It falls flat, frankly, and makes you think, did he just copy Reeves without considering the mechanics behind the creative decision? There is some wokery in the creator, or at the very least, liberal nonsense. We have a selection of mean white guys in the military, and one nice black guy with an Asian wife. We have the short-haired white woman badass, and the bad white guy who is redeemed by his Asian robot spouse. It's literally like that. They even have a scene where a white guy threatens to kill a dog if he doesn't get information to the secret robot base. It was very stupid manipulation, and is made worse when you know before you see the movie that it's going to pull some humans are bad, the West sucks balls, Eastern religions are cool, I love Reddit nonsense. And it does. But it is still fun. So it's I'll just let it slide and enjoy the other bits. And yes, I know we need to see them as psychopaths, but it's very much on the nose to the point where you're reminded this is a movie made for midwits. Simple emotions and complex ideas stripped of nuance. You get a tangential reference to theological ideas, but no real discussion. So it is first and foremost a pow-pow movie, which needs to masquerade as insightful, at times, where appropriate, between set pieces to give the illusion of depth. Which isn't bad, but it is obviously there, and so I have to comment on it. Finally, an issue I have with Nomad is it is used twice in the first 30 minutes, and then twice more before the big climax. It's not awe-inspiring when we see it again and again. How many planets did the Death Star destroy in the OG Star Wars, Garth? How often did you see the shark in Jaws, Garth? It's insane that a nobody YouTuber can see this stuff, but a guy with millions is oblivious to it. I'll spell this out in case of confusion. You cannot create a feeling of dread when the thing, be it shark or killer tech, is so frequently seen. Gareth Edwards blew his load too early. Men in Hollywood sure do that a lot. Go see my No One Will Save You review if you're curious about it. The creator will be regarded a decade from now like all other Gareth Edwards films before it. Solid, dependable. Not bad, not great, but certainly better than other stuff we're getting nowadays. It's ultimately fun and forgettable, which I must say does kind of make it good enough to go see, assuming of course you don't have anything better going on and you won't be particularly disgusted by the wokery. Ultimately, I think Gareth Edwards is the kind of man Hollywood needs more of. Someone you can rely on to produce the decent mid-range entertainment that would fill up a slate while we wait for the more impressive filmmakers to complete their next opus. And I really do mean that as a compliment. The reality is, very few people are exceptional at anything in life. So we need people who can just keep the wheels turning at a high degree while we wait for the best and brightest to shine. Thanks so much for watching.